The locus of the concordance was a space that defied simple geometry, a chamber carved not from matter, but from the very will of a civilization that had outlived stars. Its crystalline walls, miles high, pulsed with a soft, internal light, shifting in color and opacity to reflect the gravitas of the proceedings within. At its heart, a disk of solidified starlight served as the floor, and upon it stood the Elder Council, representatives of the great powers that had governed the known quadrant of the galaxy for eons uncounted. There was the Cathar Imperium, whose delegates were beings of living crystal, their thoughts resonating as pure, cold logic. There were the Glypton swarms, represented by a single, colossal nexus mind, a silent, obsidian monolith that communicated in bursts of psionic data. And there were the lumen, ethereal beings of contained energy, whose shimmering forms drifted like captive nebulae within ornate containment fields, their voices a chorus of harmonious chimes. For millennia, this council had maintained the great balance, a delicate and intricate dance of power, diplomacy, and rigidly enforced cosmic law. But today the balance was threatened not by war or rebellion, but by a whisper, a rumor, an anomaly that had blossomed into an undeniable crisis: humanity. Elder Xylos of the Cathar, his faceted form refracting the locus's light into 1,000 precise spectra, projected his thoughts into the chamber. The resonance was sharp, edged with an impatience that bordered on contempt. The data is irrefutable. The species designated human has breached the veil of whispers. They have trespassed into the forbidden zone, a region we, the collective wisdom of this concordance, declared untenable for organic life. Their actions are not merely reckless. They are a statistical impossibility, a variable that threatens to unravel the galactic equation. His thoughts were not words, but complex mathematical proofs of his assertion, a cascade of logic that left no room for sentiment. To the Cathar, the universe was a grand, elegant equation, and humanity was a chaotic, irrational number inserted where it did not belong. A soft, melodic chime answered him, the voice of Olorun, emissary of the lumen. Its form swirled, a galaxy of pearlescent light within its containment shell. Logic is but one facet of existence, Elder Xylos. The veil is not merely a zone of physical instability. It is a place of profound cosmic sorrow, an echo of a great dying. We have always felt its resonance, a psychic scream that has endured for ages. Perhaps these humans do not perceive it as a barrier, but as a calling. Their spirit, so, unbridled, may be drawn to that which is broken, seeking to mend it. The lumen perceived the universe through emotional and spiritual wavelengths, and to them, humanity's actions were not a violation of law, but a strange, compelling act of cosmic empathy. They were a species that felt too deeply, a stark contrast to the cold calculus of the Cathar. The Glypton nexus mind remained silent, but a wave of raw data flooded the minds of the other council members. It was a torrent of observations, analyses, and projections. Scans of human ships, recordings of their fragmented communications, models of their expansion patterns. The Glypton perspective was devoid of philosophy or judgment. It was pure pragmatism. Assessment: human expansion rate exceeds predictable models by a significant margin. Their technology is inconsistent, primitive in some areas, inexplicably advanced in others. Their societal structure is a paradox of brutal competition and profound altruism. They are an unstable resource, a potential threat, a puzzle to be solved before it consumes the board. The Nexus Mind did not care about human spirit or their violation of cosmic law. It cared only about their potential impact on the swarm's long-term survival. They were a new, powerful force, and the swarm's only imperative was to adapt, absorb, or eliminate. Xylos pulsed with a sharp, violet light, a crystalline expression of frustration. Empathy, survival. These are primitive motivations. The veil of whispers is a graveyard of physical laws. Space-time within its borders is frayed. Causality is a suggestion, not a constant. Stars are born and die in moments. Entire fleets of our automated probes, constructed from materials that can withstand the heart of a neutron star, have been shredded into fundamental particles within hours of entry. For a species barely capable of sustained interstellar travel, a species still bound to the fragile chemistry of carbon and water, to venture into that maelstrom is not bravery. It is suicide. And their suicide threatens to destabilize a region we have spent millennia carefully isolating. He projected an image into the center of the locus, a swirling, sickly green nebula, vast and ominous. It was the veil, and even in holographic form, it seemed to writhe with a malevolent energy. They have established a colony, a settlement, somewhere deep within that chaos. We cannot scan it. We cannot reach it. We only know of its existence from the faint, structured energy signals that periodically escape the storm's edge, signals that should not exist. Silence that followed was heavy, ancient. The Concordants had faced empires that rose and fell like tides. They had weathered cosmic catastrophes and navigated the treacherous currents of galactic politics. But this was different. This was not an enemy to be fought or a rival to be negotiated with. This was a species that did not seem to comprehend the fundamental rules of the universe. They were like children playing with a fusion reactor, unaware and uncaring of the imminent, catastrophic danger. The fear in the locus was not of human aggression, but of their ignorance. The fear that their blind fumbling in the dark would awaken something ancient and terrible, or that their inevitable, explosive demise would send shockwaves of chaos across the meticulously balanced quadrant. "We have sent them warnings," Alaran chimed, its light soft and sorrowful. "Messages of peace, of caution. We have explained the nature of the veil in terms they might understand, using their own mathematics, their own physics. They have received these messages. We have confirmed it." "And their response?" Xylos's thought form was a razor's edge. "Silence," Alaran replied. "They listen and they continue, deeper and deeper into the storm. It is as if they believe our warnings are a deception or perhaps a challenge." The Glypton Nexus mind projected a new stream of data. A single, chilling conclusion derived from its analysis of human history, a history they had painstakingly compiled from the species' own cacophonous broadcast transmissions. Conclusion: the human species exhibits a pattern of thriving under existential pressure. Their greatest technological and societal leaps are born from periods of extreme adversity. They do not avoid hardship, they are defined by it. The Veil of Whispers may not be perceived by them as a threat, but as an opportunity, a frontier, a crucible. The implication hung in the silent air of the locus, more terrifying than any declaration of war. An entire civilization that viewed a cosmic death trap not as a boundary, but as a proving ground. Xylos's crystalline mind struggled to process the concept. It was a logical fallacy, a paradox of self-destruction as a means of advancement. He had studied their history. Their world was a testament to this terrifying pattern. They had poisoned their own cradle world, fouled their nest with industrial waste and internecine warfare. And then, on the brink of self-annihilation, they had reached for the stars with a desperation and speed that defied all concordance models of species development. They were a species built on overcoming self-inflicted wounds, a civilization forged in a constant state of crisis. "This cannot be permitted to continue," Xylos declared, his resonance hardening into a command. "Their irrationality is a contagion. We must sever their connection to the veil. A cordon must be established. A quarantine. We will enforce the Concordance's decree. We will protect them from their own folly, and in doing so, protect ourselves." He envisioned a fleet of Cathar sentinels, immense, geometric vessels of pure crystal, forming an impenetrable wall at the veil's edge. It was the only logical solution. Contain the variable before it corrupts the entire system. But even as he formulated the command, a new presence made itself known. Not a psionic burst or a chime, but a simple, elegant notification that appeared on the Concordance's primary sensor network. A single, unidentified vessel had just translated from hyperspace at the precise, calculated border of Concordance territory, just beyond the edge of the Veil of Whispers. It was small, sleek, and utterly alone. It made no hostile moves. It simply waited, broadcasting a universal greeting signal, a sequence of prime numbers, the value of pi, the hydrogen spectral line. It was a message of intelligence, of peace, of a desire to communicate. It was a human ship. The tension in the locus shifted, condensing from a general anxiety into a single, sharp point of focus. For decades, they had observed the humans from afar, treating them as a curious but distant anomaly. Now the anomaly had arrived at their doorstep. The Glypton Nexus mind immediately began cross-referencing the ship's design with its database. It was unlike any military vessel they had on record. Its lines were too smooth, its energy signature too clean, too stable. It radiated a quiet power, but not the jagged, aggressive frequencies of a warship. It was something else entirely. Alaran's light pulsed with a gentle, curious warmth. "They have come to speak. After all this time, they have chosen now." Xylos remained rigid. A single ship, a gesture of either supreme arrogance or profound. "Norrance, it changes nothing. The quarantine will proceed. But first, we will hear what this variable has to say for itself. Let us see if their words are as illogical as their actions." He gave the command, and a channel was opened. A request for communication was sent to the lone vessel, a summons to the heart of galactic power. The council waited, the fate of a species and the stability of a quadrant hanging in the immense, silent chamber. They believed they were about to confront a reckless, primitive race. They had no conception of the truth, no inkling that their most fundamental assumptions about the universe were about to be shattered not by an act of war, but by a simple conversation. The humans had not come to argue or to plead. They had come to explain. The human vessel, identifying itself as the Odyssey, accepted the summons without hesitation. It moved with a grace that was unsettling, its drive system leaving no discernible wake in the fabric of spacetime. It was a technology the Concordance had theorized but never perfected. The ship navigated the intricate security corridors of the Concordance's capital world and settled into a docking bay reserved for emissaries of the highest standing, a place that had not been occupied by a new species in 10,000 years. The Council watched through 1,000 different sensors, their collective attention focused on the single airlock. They expected a contingent of guards, a procession of officials clad in the gaudy regalia of a young, insecure race. They expected noise, posture, a display of strength to mask their fear. The airlock hissed open and a single figure emerged. It was a human, a female, clad in a simple dark blue uniform devoid of rank or ornamentation. She was not flanked by soldiers or aides. She was alone. Her steps were measured, her posture calm, her expression serene as she walked down the long, crystalline causeway toward the transport that would bring her to the locus. The Glypton sensors analyzed her biometrics, heart rate steady, respiration even, no discernible signs of stress or aggression. She moved not like a petitioner entering a lion's den, but like a scholar entering a library. This quiet confidence was the first and most profound shock. It was not the behavior of a primitive. When she entered the locus, the sheer scale of the chamber, designed to awe and intimidate, had no visible effect on her. Her gaze swept over the crystalline elders, the shimmering forms of the lumen, and the silent monolith of the Nexus Mind. There was no fear in her eyes, only a deep, respectful curiosity. She stopped at the designated point on the starlit floor, a tiny, fragile figure of flesh and blood in a hall of ancient, cosmic beings. And for a long moment, she simply stood in silence, observing them as they observed her. "I am Ambassador Evelyn Reed of the Terran Coalition," she said, her voice clear and steady, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. It was not a projection of thought or a burst of data, but spoken language, translated seamlessly by her uniform's collar. The sound of a physical voice was a strange, organic thing in this place of pure energy and thought. "I thank you for agreeing to see me. We have received your warnings. We understand your concern." Xylos's resonance was sharp, cutting through the silence. "Concern? Your species plunges headlong into a cosmic graveyard, ignoring the council of civilizations that have navigated this galaxy since before your sun ignited. Concern does not adequately describe our assessment. We are witnessing an act of galactic suicide, and we will not permit your self-destruction to destabilize this quadrant." Ambassador Reed inclined her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, not submission. "We understand your perspective. Your data on the Veil of Whispers is accurate. It is a region of profound physical and energetic instability. Your probes were destroyed. Your laws of physics do not apply. Your logic is sound. From your point of view, our actions are indeed irrational." Her calm agreement was disarming. Xylos had expected denial, justification, a litany of arrogant claims. Instead, she had validated his entire premise. "If you understand this," Xylos pressed, "then why do you persist? What possible gain could outweigh the certainty of annihilation?" "Because your data is incomplete," she stated simply. Her words were not an accusation, but a statement of fact. "You have studied the storm, but you have not listened to the rain. You have measured the fire, but you have not felt its warmth." Aloran, the Lumen emissary, chimed softly. "We have listened, human. We have felt its sorrow. It is a place of death." "It was," Ambassador Reed corrected gently. "It was an echo of a great tragedy, but an echo is not the event itself. It is a resonance, and like any resonance, it can be changed. It can be harmonized." She raised her hand, and a small device on her wrist projected a holographic IM. Age into the center of the locus. It was not the sickly, chaotic green nebula the Council knew. The image was of the veil, but it was transformed. The swirling gases were still there, but they moved with a serene, majestic rhythm. Streams of brilliant energy, once chaotic and destructive, now flowed in gentle, controlled rivers between nascent star systems. And nestled within these rivers of light were structures, vast glowing habitats that shimmered with a soft, golden luminescence. They were not fortresses, not shielded bunkers built to withstand a storm. They were more like coral reefs, intricate and organic, built with the storm, their very architecture seeming to soothe the cosmic chaos around them. Inside these habitats, the hologram zoomed in to reveal thriving ecosystems. Forests of alien flora, oceans teeming with life, and cities, human cities, bathed in a gentle, perpetual twilight. Children played in parks under the light of a captured singularity, and scholars studied the birth of a new sun from an observatory window. It was not a colony struggling for survival. It was a sanctuary, a paradise built in the heart of hell. The locust fell into a silence so profound it felt like the snuffing of a star. Xylos's crystalline form flickered, his internal logic chains struggling to reconcile the image before him with millennia of incontrovertible data. The Glypton Nexus mind emitted a single, low-frequency psionic pulse, the equivalent of a gasp of utter shock. Olorun's shimmering form stilled, its light dimming as it focused its entire being on the impossible image. How, Xylos's thought was barely a whisper. This is a violation of thermodynamics, of causality. This is not possible. We did not fight the veil, Ambassador Reed explained, her voice filled with a quiet pride. We listened to it. We studied its chaos not as an enemy, but as a language. The whispers you detected were not just random noise. They were the discordant frequencies of a dying reality. We learned to sing back. Our technology, which you deemed inconsistent, is built on a principle you have overlooked: resonance. We developed resonance harmonizers, vast networks of them that don't block the energy of the veil but attune to it. They absorb the chaotic frequencies and rebroadcast them in a stable, coherent form. We are not fighting the storm. We are calming it. We are healing it. She gestured to the flowing rivers of energy in the hologram. This is our power source. The raw chaos of the veil, now tamed, fuels our worlds. We are not merely surviving in the veil, we are thriving because of it. We built against all odds, not by conquering the impossible, but by understanding it, by showing it empathy. The philosophical weight of her statement struck the council harder than any weapon. The Cathar, with their rigid logic, had seen the veil as a flawed equation to be isolated. The Glyptons, with their survivalist pragmatism, saw it as a threat to be avoided. The Lumen, with their deep empathy, saw it as a source of sorrow to be mourned. Only the humans, the chaotic, emotional, illogical humans, had seen it as a wound to be healed. Their empathy was not a weakness. It was their greatest scientific instrument. The Glypton Nexus mind broke the silence, flooding the chamber with a new stream of data. It had been analyzing the ambassador's ship, the Odyssey, and had finally understood its power source. The ship's core was a miniature, mobile version of the resonance harmonizers. It was powered by the background radiation of the universe itself, drawing in chaotic energy and converting it to stable power. It was a technology so far beyond the concordance that it bordered on magic. It was a power source that meant the humans were not tied to stars or planets. They could go anywhere. They could live anywhere. They were a truly interstellar civilization. You have turned poison into water, Olorun chimed, its light flaring with an emotion the concordance had not felt in ages. Wonder. You have built a garden in a wasteland. We had to, Ambassador Reed said, and for the first time a shadow of an ancient sadness crossed her face. Our own history taught us a hard lesson. We learned that you cannot outrun your problems. You cannot wall off the parts of the universe or the parts of yourself that are broken. Sooner or later you must turn and face them, not with force but with understanding. The veil was our ultimate test, a test for our science, our philosophy, our very spirit. Xylos felt the crystalline structures of his own mind grinding against each other. His entire worldview, the foundation of Cathar logic that had stood for 1,000,000 years, was fracturing. They had always sought to impose order on the universe, to correct its flaws, to prune its chaotic branches. The humans had taken a different path. They had embraced the chaos. They had integrated it. They had created a higher, more complex form of order from it. Their Jickle nature was not a flaw. It was a more advanced processing system, one capable of seeing solutions where Cathar logic saw only impenetrable walls. He had called them a chaotic variable. He was wrong. They were the solution to an equation he hadn't even known he was trying to solve. Why, Xylos finally projected, his thought form softer, stripped of its earlier arrogance. Why did you not share this? Why the silence? We sent you our knowledge, our warnings. You dismissed them without a word. Ambassador Reed's expression grew serious. We did not dismiss them, Elder Xylos. We listened. We are grateful for your intentions, but we could not respond, not until we were certain. This achievement was built on a knife's edge. It could have failed catastrophically at any moment. To announce our attempt and fail would have invited your intervention, an intervention that, however well-meaning, would have used force and suppression, the very principles that are antithetical to the veil's healing. We had to prove it could be done not with words but with action. Furthermore, she paused, her gaze sweeping across the council members, we had to be sure of you. The statement was a quiet thunderclap in the locus. You have governed this quadrant for eons, she continued, her voice respectful but firm. You have maintained the balance, but your balance is static. It is a peace born of stagnation, of fear of the unknown. You quarantined the veil. You declared it forbidden. You saw a problem and you isolated it. We saw a problem and we solved it. We had to know if your concordance was capable of accepting a new paradigm, a new way of thinking. Or if you would see our achievement not as a gift, but as a threat to your established order. Our silence was a test, not of you, but for us, to see if the galaxy was ready for what we had discovered. The truth of her words was undeniable. Xylos knew, with the cold certainty of pure logic, that if the humans had announced their plan, he would have done exactly as she said. He would have dispatched the sentinels to stop them, to protect them, and in doing so, he would have destroyed the greatest miracle the galaxy had seen in 1,000,000 years. His logic, his empire's entire philosophy, would have been the instrument of that destruction. A low, resonant chime from Olorun filled the chamber, a sound of profound agreement. She is right. We have grown old. We have become custodians of a museum, not explorers of a living universe. We have feared the whispers when we should have been learning their song. The Glypton Nexus mind, in a gesture of unprecedented significance, retracted the cold, analytical data streams it had been projecting. In their place, it sent a single, complex psionic image, a symbol of a new, symbiotic relationship, a non-aggression pact, an offer of alliance. Xylos stood silent for a long time, the light within his crystalline form shifting through a kaleidoscope of uncertain colors. He had been so certain of his righteousness, of the unimpeachable power of his logic. Now he saw that his logic was a cage, elegant and strong, but a cage nonetheless. The humans, with their messy emotions, their irrational hope, their history of falling and rising again, were free. They had proven him wrong. They had built a civilization against all odds, the odds of their own nature, the odds of their damaged world, and finally, the odds of a hostile universe. He finally focused his light, a clear, steady beam of pure white, and directed it at Ambassador Reed. Your test is complete, Ambassador. You have your answer. The concordance has been in error. Your achievement is a paradigm shift for all life in this galaxy. We are ready to learn. It was the most difficult admission a Cathar elder had ever made, and it felt like a mountain crumbling into dust inside his consciousness, leaving behind a new, open landscape. Ambassador Reed gave a slow, genuine smile. It was a look of relief, of profound, weary triumph. We are glad to hear that, she said, because calming the veil was only the first step. It was a preparation. We did not enter the veil simply for the sake of expansion or to prove a point. We came because the veil was hiding something, something that we needed to understand. A new sense of dread, cold and sharp, pierced the newfound hope in the locus. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a much larger, darker one. What was it hiding? Olorun asked, its light trembling slightly. The ambassador's smile faded, replaced by an expression of infinite gravity. A message, she said. The whispers were not just the echoes of a dying reality. They were the remnants of a warning, a final, desperate scream from a civilization that existed before yours, before any of us. A civilization that was not destroyed by the chaos of the veil. The veil is what was left after they were annihilated by something else, something from outside. She raised her hand again. Indeed, the beautiful hologram of the serene, healed veil vanished. In its place was a single, terrifying image. It was a star chart, but of a scale that dwarfed their known quadrant, showing the entire galaxy. And from the void between galaxies, a shadow was moving. It was not a fleet. It was a presence, a void in space-time, a wave of nothingness that was slowly, inexorably moving toward them. The signal from the ancient, dead civilization was overlaid, a frantic, repeating pattern of mathematical constants that translated to a single, horrifying concept. It consumes. It erases. It is the great silence. The chaos of the veil was a barrier, Ambassador Reed explained, her voice low and solemn. A natural quarantine that kept this entity from easily detecting the life within this galaxy. By healing the veil, we have made the galaxy quiet, stable, orderly. We have, in effect, lit a beacon in the great dark, announcing our presence. The ancient signal was a warning. Do not silence the storm, for the storm is what keeps the hunters at bay. The members of the concordance stared at the map. at the encroaching darkness. All their millennia of squabbles, their rigid laws, their carefully constructed balance, it was all the petty politics of children in a house they did not know was on fire. They had been afraid of a species that played in a storm, while a cosmic hurricane was gathering just beyond the horizon. "We came here not to boast of our achievement," Ambassador Reed concluded, her gaze meeting each of them in turn. "We came here to deliver the warning that the Vale's original inhabitants could not. We came to ask for your help. We built our sanctuary against all odds, proving that the impossible can be achieved. Now we all must do so again, together, for a new storm is coming, and this one will not be healed with a song." In the locus of the concordance, the ancient chamber of power, there was no more debate. There was no more judgment. There was only a shared, profound silence as the elder races of the galaxy, humbled and awakened by the young, chaotic species they had so gravely underestimated, turned their collective gaze to the star chart. They looked upon the encroaching, silent darkness, and for the first time in a million years, they felt a true, unified purpose. The age of their balance was over. The age of their survival had just begun, and it would be humanity, the species born of chaos and hope, that would have to teach them how to face the end of everything.